So we got to meet each other because of the New Orleans terror incident.
Mhm.
And that journalist, and I like I said in the video, like I wasn't even angry at the journalist. I just would never have done it in a million years. So you've got some good contacts in as relates to this story. Without getting into sources and methods, what's the latest and who are you talking to that's telling you what's going on the ground in New Orleans?
Yeah, well, sadly, the FBI isn't trying to be transparent. They're usually the ones who dodge me quite often. There was multiple outlets that went in and did a whole tour of the facility, or the home, I should say. And ultimately, they said that on Thursday, they cleared the home. So the day after the terror attack, they cleared it after they went through it, and they released it back to the property owner. The property owner let the journalist into the home to look around, which is very strange because I talked to FBI agents, former federal prosecutors. They all say that it takes days to go through a home, especially after a terror attack. And so a lot of them were very concerned that the FBI didn't do the job that it needed to do to sift through everything. And then you look at the footage and you go through it, and the New York Post journalist shows you that there's a desk with electronics, she says, and one of the items that's visible on the desk appears to be a laptop. Now, other FBI agents tell me too, that looks like a laptop. I know there's a lot of people who think it might be a cooling pad, but it looks like a laptop. So I've asked the FBI now 3 times why they didn't take that laptop with them as evidence. I also asked them, because as she goes through the property, she shows you that there's a Quran left behind, there's Islamic material left behind, as well as a Bible. So I asked why they didn't take all of that as well, because we obviously know that religion was a motive behind this. And they didn't respond. And then you look at the countertop. There's the warrant, which says it's sealed, and there's a copy left behind, which they're supposed to be doing. And then there's also the receipt of the items they took from the home, the FBI. But when I talk to FBI agents who have done several warrants on homes, they say that those notes in regards to the receipt are usually handwritten because the agents are on the scene and they're writing what they've actually taken from the home and give a carbon copy to the property owner so that they have it for their records. But the odd part in it is that receipt is actually typed up. It's not handwritten. And they thought that was pretty strange because who would have a computer on hand and who would have a printer on hand? It's not something that normally is done by the FBI. So, and that's right there on the counter.
Yeah. And first of all, everybody, you're going to tell me that it doesn't look like Breanna in this? It doesn't matter.
I would never wear yoga pants on a crime scene or any reporting I do.
Maybe that was the implicit insult. I have nothing for or against yoga pants. It's not just that it's not just that it's there like the orgy of evidence out of Minority Report. You can actually read what I presume contains some confidential information. You're like, it's going to have the property address, I presume. I'm almost scared to look.
Yeah.
Look at this sample of, I mean, you've been doing this for longer than I have. And you have contacts within. There's nothing normal about this. This is absolutely abnormal.
Yeah. My FBI contacts say there's nothing normal about this. Federal prosecutors also saying the same thing. And they were very confused. Actually, one of them thought it was fake. He didn't think this was a real tour. And I said, no, I mean, they're confirming that she got a real tour of it. And it wasn't by the FBI. It was property. Yeah.
This is the address of the property in what that journalist posted. This is why, it's like being let into the Capitol building and you think you're okay. And then they're going to come and say, what did you publish to the internet? Okay, I mean, and the walk, there's nothing that's been bagged, tagged. When we say like, oh, there's just a valise sitting here. This is the Quran open up to a page. And he's got the, I guess, because he maybe was not born speaking Arabic, he's got the English alliterations. It's this. Okay, so the cooling pad for the computer was at the beginning, correct? Right here. Okay.
Beginning. Yep. So it's right there. So if you could zoom in a little bit, it does look like a laptop. I think it looks like a laptop.
Absolutely. They got the logo there. I mean, I'd say it almost looks like a Lenovo, but
she says electronics too, by the way. I know there's a lot of people on X saying that it's not a laptop, but she says these are the electronics they left behind when she's giving you the tour.
It is. I can't zoom in on the video, but holy cows! So you have contacts. How does it work actually? If I could ask, with your contacts within the FBI, they have field offices, and then they have their federal overarching entity. Like, how does it work in terms of who you get to talk to and who they answer to?
Yeah, so for an investigation like this, I contact the field office directly. They do have a media line for journalists to reach out and ask questions, and so that's where I go with these questions. So that's kind of where you go. You don't ask New Orleans. This happened in Houston, so I'd ask the Houston field office for these details, and that's the one who gave me these responses. And the strange part about all of this, just the following day, so keep in mind, terrorist attack happened last Wednesday. The FBI cleared the home Thursday morning. By the way, that New York Post reporter reported to the home before the FBI did. So she claims in her tweets that she got there at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday, I believe. So she beat the FBI to his home, which is very strange as well. So The FBI looked at the home, I guess, from Wednesday after 1 p.m. Eastern time, cleared it by Thursday morning, back to the homeowner, the property owner received their property back. So they were able to gain access to the property. And then there's a local news reporter who went back on Friday. And according to this local news reporter, it's a Fox local affiliate in Houston, they claim that the Harris County, so that's the county office, the deputies, that they sealed off the property to find more explosive device evidence is what they're reporting. So I reached out specifically to the sheriff's office because I do know him, not personally, but I've known him for quite some time now on X and stuff. And I did ask him, I said, hey, what's going on here? Are you guys actually going through the house now to find evidence? And he said he can't give me comments, but the investigation is being led by the FBI. So I sent that to my FBI friends again. They tell me, Breanna, that just means that they're lending their resources temporarily to the FBI to help them out because they probably just need some, men out there to help them. They might not have all the agents that they need, so they're sealing off the property, and the FBI might actually be coming back to collect more evidence. So I think, and I asked the FBI if they went back to go collect evidence after I complained to them about leaving all these items behind, and they don't want to comment on it. They told me to go back to their website. What their website actually says page error. So if you go to their website for press releases, it's not there. And then the FBI told me they're aware that it's not there. They're working on it.
And we were DMing, and I had asked you, like, did any one of your contacts at the FBI, if you had asked them, did they answer whether or not that entire crime scene technically is basically spoiled now? Is it a contaminated crime scene?
No, they didn't say any of that. And that's the thing too. Is I think that they're just they continue to push that this is a single person who was acting that day. Now that wasn't the original narrative they told us. I'm sure you remember. They originally told us that multiple people.
Yeah, but I felt like I was going crazy. They said it's not a terror attack, although they had the ISIS flag there. Maybe they thought that was a gag. Then they said he didn't act alone. There were accomplices planting IEDs throughout New Orleans. They've got the video footage. I then tweeted out, how long did you have that video footage for when you said that he acted alone? It was highlighting some contradictions. Then they come out and say, no, it was a terrorist attack, and no, he was acting alone. Although you've seen his travel plans. He went to Egypt, went up to Canada, Ontario, which for good or bad has a very high population of immigrant population. And it's very questionable, if not outright obvious, that he was not acting alone. And the only question is, they typically say we do not comment on the existence or whatever of an investigation. And yet here they're offering a bunch of information early on that turns out to be 180 degrees inverted from reality. I mean, I don't have any experience with this. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think they're intentionally trying to cause confusion. And the key part about where he traveled to Egypt is right by Libya. And Libya has a extended history of training terrorists. And we're very well versed on that. So it could be that our federal government missed this, that he might have traveled to Libya after arriving in Egypt. I know a lot of the CIA experts on X have been floating that idea as well. So that's a possibility that he could have been trained when he did that trip to Egypt. So it's interesting to see that our FBI missed all of this. Now, like you cited, so the mayor of New Orleans came out and said that this was a terror incident. And then we saw that the FBI agent Nose Piercing came out and said that this was not a terror event.
Is her name actually Nose Piercing, or did she have a nose piercing?
She had a nose piercing, so it's a great joke because she really was not prepared. It's like a child.
Well, people were making the DEI joke yet again. Yeah. I didn't see the nose piercing. I just knew that she said it wasn't a terrorist attack when, by all accounts, it was patently so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the FBI had to issue a correction because she said that there wasn't any terror connection to any of this. And the FBI is like, nah, well, maybe like 30 minutes later, yeah, there was. I mean, she knew that there was an ISIS flag in that vehicle. I don't know whether it was the one that we thought was hanging on the car originally because it looked like maybe there was a coat thrown over it. I'm not sure if it was in the car specifically. But again, I mean, how do you miss that and then look at all of these cameras and say that this wasn't a terror event? You can't say something like that. You have to say, listen, we're investigating all avenues right now and we're not prepared to give comments. That's how you say it.
Time frame wise, do we know when they discovered his property in Texas? Because I initially read about that in the New York Post. But like if they had accessed that property at that point and then still made the statement it wasn't a terrorist attack, knowing what was in that guy's apartment, which at least would cause you to suspend and not answer the question. Like, I wonder what they knew when and who knew what when. But if it's just a bunch of incompetent buffoons saying whatever, totally disjointed from one another, that's also a problem. So the fact that they're wrong is a problem. Why are they wrong could be an even bigger problem.
Yeah, I think they're trying to create chaos. I think they're trying to create confusion amongst the American people. We see time and time again that they do this, where they put out false information and they quickly fix it. Oh, sorry, we got it wrong. I think it's also meant to discredit social media platforms for those
Mhm.
who are on X, who are posting on X, independent journalists, because we're out here reporting things. And then if we're reporting what they're telling us, we look like we're factually incorrect. And a lot of people then might not trust us. But like you cited initially, too, they said that there was multiple people who were arrested in regards to all of this. And then they backpedaled that and said, these were just innocent bystanders. They weren't individuals who participated in any of this. So I think it's all intentional, because this would be something that you'd hold close to your chest. You wouldn't release any of this to the public. And then also you asked the question in regards to when did they find out about his Houston home? As soon as it took him about an hour to confirm his full name.
Yeah.
I got his information about it maybe an hour prior to all of this, and I was doing the digging, immediately got all of his information, the multiple homes that he had in Texas. He also had a residency in Georgia. He's also registered in several states to vote, but he switched it over time. It wasn't all at the same time. He was a registered Democrat back in 2012. He voted in the 2012 election. Like, I got all of this information through a database that I use. There's no way they didn't know about the Houston home and couldn't have sent their agents to his home sooner than 1 p.m. That day, because the terror attack took place at 3 in the morning. I mean, they had that's over 9 hours. That's insane.
There's another element of the timeline I want to get into, but okay. So the New York Post reported that he was living in a trailer park among primarily Pakistani immigrants, many of whom didn't speak English. Apparently, the property that that journalist walked through, was that on the trailer park side, or was that another property?
I'm not sure. I know it's a rental, but I'm not 100% certain
Okay.
if it was the trailer that she was referring to. I know there was other reports that there was other independent journalists at his property, and so there was things like goats walking around and sheep walking around the property. So it was very strange.
So I heard as well. All right, and then the fire at the Airbnb in New Orleans. Do you have info on that? Because A, I don't know if it happened anymore. B, if it happened, I don't know when it happened, because they reported that the fire broke out 2 hours after he had already been killed by police. And so, I mean, like, again, it's chaos.
Yeah.
I have an underlying feeling it's also so that in a certain period of time, they can go back to everybody who repeated what the FBI said that was false and say, don't trust them anymore. They're disinformation, like Elon Musk, like other journalists. But do you know the timeline on that fire, or whether or not it even occurred?
Yeah, that's the problem here, right? I heard that he tried starting the fire himself, but like you said, he was already deceased at the time where we heard the reports of the fire taking place. So I don't know. And it's funny how it just quickly has dissipated. Like, no one's even talking about, there's no real reports on it either. I just don't understand why these things happen. Why we hear, well, I know why they happen, but why they tell you a little bit and then it kind of just disappears and vanishes and no one is even asking any questions. And also, by the way, the FBI, when I ask questions to them now, they tell me they're not doing any interviews with the media and that I can't even ask them questions anymore. So
Well,
they're done with me.
Because you're not a trustworthy journalist, like the woman who did the walkthrough. Who I was wondering, what the whole thing is, I read your bio and then I look at the hat. It's like, why? I guess you're wearing. I don't know if you were wearing. When I thought it was you, I was like, oh, I guess she's wearing a New York Post hat to like get access to.
Yeah.
I couldn't reconcile the New York Post hat, but I guess that journalist works for New York Post.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as what we know now, the latest and where you're at, the individual, as far as we know now, didn't worked alone, or at least their FBI is not saying that he didn't. He traveled to Egypt. We don't know if he hit Libya. We know that he either came through Canada, Ontario, which would explain a few things as well. And that's where it's at right now. No more latest breaking news.
Yeah, there's really nothing else. I mean, normally the FBI says things like, oh, this person was on our radar, but they haven't admitted to that, which makes me concerned because given the fact there was an ISIS flag, whether it was homemade or whether it was something that was purchased or sent online or sent back from one of these trips he was on, how does one obtain an ISIS flag and it go unnoticed by the FBI? You know, the FBI probably knows our discussions, you and I, even before we started this broadcast, because they're in our phones at this point.